Hey everyone, John Lorden here. Welcome to another episode of BrainScratch Searchlight. Thank you to the many brain scratchers out there that let me know about this case. This is one that a lot of people are very concerned about. I think we've got some good cause to be concerned now. We are wondering, where is Blaze Bernstein? And let me just set this up a little bit. Imagine you've got a college kid home for a winter break. He makes arrangements to get a ride with a friend a little late at night, doesn't tell his family about it. The friend takes him to a park, and supposedly he disappears from there. Certainly a mystery, and there are some details that we want to cover on this, so let's jump into it together. We're starting with a press release from the Orange County Sheriff's Department. Special bulletin, missing person, Blaze N. Bernstein. He is a male, Caucasian, 19 years old, with blue eyes, brown hair. He is 5 foot 8 inches tall and weighs around 130 pounds. For clothing, they know he was wearing a dark colored jacket, a dark gray long sleeved zip up, and white Adidas shoes. Kind of interesting. We don't have any description of the pants, but that is all that we have. Last contact was approximately at 11 p.m. Tuesday, January 2nd. And we're certainly getting into the area where we have some cause for concern with how long he's been missing. Young people this age, sometimes they disappear, sometimes they pop back up a couple days later. That doesn't seem to be what we have going on in this case. He missed a flight back to school. Apparently, he really loved his school. So there's a lot to be concerned about here. Blaze Bernstein was last seen at approximately 11 p.m. on Tuesday, January 2nd, entering Borrego Park in Foothill Ranch. He was in Orange County on winter break from the University of Pennsylvania. Witnesses said he met up with a friend, and the two drove to Borrego Park, where the teen exited the vehicle and entered the park. The 19-year-old has not been seen or heard from since. They have contact information, which of course I will have in the description box below as well. If there's anyone out there that has some information that can help with this case, please use that contact information and get it into the authorities so they can act on it. Over at KTLA 5, we get a little bit of a timeline that was put together from his parents. His parents, who pleaded publicly for their son's safe return at a news conference on Friday, came up with a timeline based on his cell phone record. Around 10:30 p.m., they said, Bernstein texted his address to a friend who came to the home and picked him up. And apparently this was a friend of his from high school. They drove to Borrego Park together, where they were going to meet up with another friend. Now, for me, after looking into this case, this other friend is a very important hoop, and I don't see any information about who this person is. Does the first friend know the second friend? It's a kind of a black hole in this story at this point. I really wish that authorities might release some information, but we just don't have it right now. About an hour later, he sent a final text to a female friend, and then his phone apparently stopped working. The friend who picked him up said he never returned and he left. Bernstein's parents said he didn't have his ID, wallet, money, credit cards, or even his glasses with him, leading them to believe that their son was only expecting to be there for a short time. They reported him missing the next day. Quote, "I do not believe that drugs or alcohol were involved. Blaze had zero tolerance for this," said his mother. I just have to comment that looking at this from the outside, no, I don't know Blaze. I do know what it's like to be a young person. I got to tell you, there were several instances where I was going to the park, and things that you're doing at the park are probably stuff you don't want your parents to know about. As a matter of fact, when I was really young, I would even sneak out in the middle of the night and just go hang out with my friends in a park. That's where you go when you need some sense of, you're not really getting privacy there, but if you need to be away from eyes that might stop you from doing something you want to be doing. So I really appreciate his mother's point of view that they have no reason to expect that drugs or alcohol are involved here. But this is a kid that's recently gone off to college. Perhaps his personality has changed around that a little bit. You have this weird thing going on where he's calling another friend for a ride. That person's come picking him up. They're going to meet someone else. And at this point, we really don't have any understanding of what the context of that meeting is. So I don't know that based solely on what his mother's saying here that we can rule out that there's some situation that this might have been a meetup that involved drugs or alcohol in some way. I don't know that we can completely rule it out, but it just doesn't sound right to me. The whole methodology going on here of going with your friends at night to a park, which a lot of public parks out here in the US typically have hours listed on them. They don't have gates where they necessarily lock them up, but they'll have very clear signs that the park closes at dusk, or maybe it closes at 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. These guys are going out there after 10. They're hanging out at this park around 11. I don't know. There's something really wrong just in the setup of this story for me. Outside of that, we're going to get to a couple of discrepancies that we're hearing about in the media here, which I don't know if it's just bad reporting or if something else might be going on here. But let's continue. Jumping over to LATimes.com. Orange County authorities continue search for missing college student. This was posted January 6th of 2018. The friend told investigators that he went to a restroom at the park, and when he came out, Bernstein had walked off. A spokesperson for the sheriff's department is saying, "We do not believe foul play was involved at this point, and the friend is only a witness, not a suspect or person of concern." Let's jump to a map of this park real quick. And I got to tell you guys, for me personally, this mystery gets even more interesting when you take a look at this park. You can see the parking area for it is over here. And just off the parking area, I believe there's a little building here. This might be where the bathrooms where the bathrooms are. There's also some kind of tent structures over here. I don't know if the bathrooms might be there, but I would imagine the bathrooms are probably fairly close to where the parking is for this park. But if you take a look at the rest of this park, it is largely just like a big giant field. There's not a lot for people to hide in. There's not a lot of places where you could really kind of easily lose track of someone. Now, one thing that's interesting is it does seem to have this walking trail. You can kind of see it that goes all around the perimeter. To the north of the park up here is a school. And down below, you actually have a Ralph's supermarket and a whole chain of stores down here. So this park is kind of walled off by pretty strong structures in terms of businesses. It's not like, I don't know. I'm struggling with if something happened to him, where would he be hidden? And knowing that there was intensive searches done in this area and nothing was found, I'm really wondering if he's even still in this area or if there's something else to this story that we don't understand. If it's possible, maybe this is a situation where college wasn't working out for him. Maybe his parents didn't know that for some reason. Maybe he decided that he had to leave. We kind of have some information that might support that, but a very strong commentary from the parents that that's not what's going on here. Personally, after looking into this, I think there is a very good chance that he's alive out there somewhere, but he felt like he needed to escape for some reason. One thing that is concerning about this park is it does connect to a very thick brush area back here. You can see Borrego Trail. And if you follow that trail, it actually leads into some much denser areas in terms of brush, and then kind of out into the wilderness a little bit once you clear all these housing tracts. So there is some potential, obviously, if you're looking at this for, him to have been hidden somewhere. But as it is right now, we really have no information to point to that very strongly. And we just have this kind of narrative about a friend who stops at a restroom, and when he comes out of the restroom, his other friend is missing, which once again really bothers me about the question of what is the intent of this meeting. How many friends say, "Hey, I need a ride, let's go meet up with someone else." And then when you go to meet up with that other person, one of the friends says, "Okay, I'll wait here," and you go meet up with that person. Once again, the logistics of this are sounding like it's like it's something not quite on the up and up is all I can say, but that's really just a feeling, and I'm definitely putting that out there that is just my opinion. Bernstein's cell phone, which had been lent to him by a relative a week earlier, was not receiving calls, stopped receiving calls around 11:30, if I remember properly. And of course, the pink trail stops there as well. Now, here's where we get some interesting info from his father. We didn't even hear him leave. He basically left without saying goodbye. Blaze left the house around 10:30 or so, but exactly why he left is a big mystery. We didn't know the person he met up with. We're hoping he comes back or we find him. So once again, when you're looking at things like this and we're getting pieces like this, this is a young man that apparently made dinner for his family just that evening. And all of a sudden, everything kind of slows down. His grandparents leave and people assume that he's up in his bedroom, but he's not. He basically slips out and they know nothing about it. Now, admittedly, he didn't take his wallet, didn't take his glasses, didn't take any of the things that he would need to really take care of himself. So it's weird because is that showing his intent that this really wasn't supposed to be that long of a trip, that he was just going out to meet someone for a quick moment and then coming back home? Or is there something else going on here where he didn't want to be able to be traced and he thought that maybe some of that stuff, having his credit cards would have been too easy for him to use them and then be traced later if he was trying to leave the situation, or, essentially if this was a runaway situation, which quite honestly, I'm kind of hoping it is at this point because I think that's our best chance that he's out there unharmed somewhere. Let's continue at patch.com. Unfortunately, the search for the missing OC teen ends after 6 days. Now, they're talking about basically the intensive land search that was going on around that. And this is January 8th of 2018. A spokeswoman for the sheriff's department told NBC News that more than 20 deputies searched Whiting Ranch for days without luck. She said investigators would continue to pursue leads into Bernstein's disappearance. Here it also notes that his family had cooked dinner Tuesday before he disappeared. It's once again, I don't know. I struggle with that a little bit because I've heard of searches being called off and then occasionally you'll get to a point a year, sometimes several years later, random hiker, random bicyclist, someone walking a dog will come across the remains of someone that is missing. I sincerely hope that isn't the case here, and the family is trying to take some additional efforts, which we're going to talk about as well, to make sure that he's not truly out in that wilderness. Jumping over to LATimes.com, we get a comment from his mother. If there's any way you can come home, whatever has happened, wherever you've been, whoever you've talked to, it doesn't matter. We love you so much that we would give up everything we have to have you back. There's a video clip attached to this, so if you want to check this out, check out the sources in the description box below and look for the LA Times article. You can see a pretty lengthy interview with his mom that is at the park, and once again, just shows you there's not a lot of places to hide in that park. It is largely just a big open area. Let me take you to a street view of it real quick. Oh, good. So here we get, I'm pretty sure this building would contain the bathrooms, and those tents that I was talking about, looks like that's just a play area, and they basically have some fabric above it to break up the sun so people don't get too much sun exposure out there. But look at this park. There's not a lot of places to hide here. It is largely just a giant open field. If you look over to the right here, you'll see that there's the fence line for where the school is. Admittedly, it doesn't look like a giant fence. Perhaps that could have been jumped in some way. You see the walking path that goes off here and then winds through. And then somewhere to the left here, you might not be able to see it, should be the shopping center. And it looks like it actually might be downhill from where this park is. Which is another thing that concerned me. If you're meeting someone here, where are they going to park? From me looking at this from this top view, there's only one place to park if you're coming to this park. Like I was thinking perhaps the person he was meeting, maybe they parked near the Ralphs and then kind of cut through some of this walkway to meet with him. But this does look like it might be a graded hill of some kind. So I'm not sure how feasible that is, that the third person in this whole meetup parked down here somewhere, maybe near the Arco or near the Ralph's supermarket. But if you just scan around this, Not a lot of other places to park. There seems to be something over here, but once again, I can't tell if this is below the park, essentially. The park seems to have this walking trail that maybe potentially leads down to these parking areas. So I guess theoretically, if there is someone else involved in this, maybe they could have parked over here, but that would be pretty dicey. I would imagine there are tons of cameras in this shopping center. I hope investigators are looking into that, but just wanted to point that out to you guys. I'm really struggling with the logistics of, hey, my buddy took me here to meet someone. That person is somewhere else. You stay here. I'm going to go meet with them. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense that they would park anywhere else except for the main parking for the park, which I don't know. I really don't know if that's what's happened here. Back to the LA Times article. The teenager was scheduled to catch a flight back to Pennsylvania early Sunday. His mother said, though there's no sign that he returned on his own. She said her son was excited to return to school. Over the weekend, she found a note on his computer describing how important it was to be an optimist. Blaze, she said, managed his stress with school by cooking and writing. And that's kind of the first little hint that we get that maybe he might have been dealing with something. Kind of interesting that he had to write a note to himself about being optimistic. And she's pointing out that he's at least dealing with stress. Of course, kids in an Ivy League school, but that he does manage his stress with cooking and writing. So I don't know. Doesn't really point to him struggling in a severe way there. Over to another article at patch.com. Here we get a description a little bit different from another description we're going to see about what his friend said happened. An Orange County Sheriff's Department spokesperson said witnesses said he met up with a friend and the two drove to Borrego Park, where the teen exited the vehicle and entered the park. Now, that's a little bit different from some other accounts that we've heard about this, where essentially the friend is saying that he went into the bathroom. When he came out of the bathroom, Bernstein was missing. There's also a little bit of a variation on that where it says, no, he went by the bathroom and Bernstein told him that I'm going to go meet this person, and he kind of stayed near the bathroom. So there's a lot of different versions of this story. Like I said, I don't know if this is due to the press getting it incorrect. I don't know if we have different department spokespeople that are giving kind of different versions here. I just have to point out to you guys the variations as I see them. An attorney and friend of the family discussed the timeline since Blaze's mysterious disappearance. At 9:30, he sent a text message with his family's Lake Forest address for a high school buddy to pick him up and take him to the park to meet the third person. The park is 5 minutes away, and when they got there, about 10:30 p.m., Blaze went off alone into the park while his friend waited back in the car. So once again, here we're getting pretty much word for word that his friend is waiting in the car for Blaze to go and meet someone else, which to me really sounds like a pickup of some kind, but that's my opinion. Bernstein's friend eventually began sending text messages to him when he didn't return, but he did not hear back from him. The friend left and then returned at about 4 a.m. to look for Bernstein again. That part, and this is the only article where I've been able to find this, really boggles my mind and doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know that he has no means of transportation on his own. You've given him a ride to a park where supposedly he's going to meet with someone else. You don't see him meet up with this other person. So you don't know that he's, with someone else that maybe has a car that could take him somewhere else. And you decide, I'm just going to leave. But you're concerned enough that at 4 a.m. you come back to look for him again. This is extremely suspicious to me. This makes me wonder about this initial friend and could they potentially have some involvement here or not? Let me be clear. The police are saying, no. This person is not even a person of concern, not a person of interest, and certainly not a suspect. But when I hear something like this and I think about it logically, I struggle. Now, I don't know this guy's story. It could be that for some reason he had to be home And then he was able to get back out at 4 a.m. Maybe his parents would have been worried about him if he stayed out all night looking for this friend that he drove to the park. There might be some aspect here which makes perfectly logical sense. In the media that we're reviewing on this case, that information is not included. And this is a really weird thing to me. If I took a friend somewhere and they were supposed to come back to the car, they didn't come back to the car, I'd be looking for them right away. I might give it an hour, and then if I wasn't able to find them, I'm pretty sure I'm contacting their parents, and I'm pretty sure we're trying to escalate things from there, regardless of what was going on initially. This whole thing where, no, I'm going to go and wait 5 hours, but then I'm going to go back out and try to look for them. I mean, the logic in it bothers me a little bit, because if your previous assumption was, well, he's with a different friend and that friend took him somewhere, why are you going to go back to the park at 4 a.m.? It's not extremely logical to me, but granted, not everyone operates on the purest logic, or I don't know how else to say it. Witnesses say they saw someone matching Bernstein's height and weight walking along the southbound lanes of the 241 toll road in the disabled car lane about 5:40 a.m. Wednesday. I've seen a couple of mentions of this, but obviously it doesn't seem to have panned out. It seems like his family was interested in this sighting as well. They said it kind of made sense in terms of how far he might have gotten if he was walking from the park at that point. But I don't know if they've ever tracked down the person who this actually was to really confirm or debunk that. He was excited about going back to college, and he was moving to a new apartment. He was on the internet that night buying things. It all points to a kid who was not depressed, who was happy and wanted to go back to school. Just another interesting point here. If he really is buying things for his new apartment, that is definitely showing the intent that, he wants to get back to school, and he's probably doing okay in his life, even if he is stressed with some things that he's going through. So the family is taking up some efforts. I don't know if this is in response to knowing that the sheriffs are kind of ending their search efforts, but Bernstein's family and friends have increased efforts to find him by using about a dozen civilian drones on January 7th in the park where Bernstein was last seen. This was the first day Gideon Bernstein, Blaze's father, decided to coordinate search and rescue efforts independently from the Orange County Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department has employed a variety of tools in finding Bernstein, including search and rescue missions, helicopters, and trained dogs. So essentially, they're trying to get drone coverage. They're having people review the drone coverage, trying to find any sign of Blaze being out there. Bernstein was just elected to be the managing editor of Penn Appetit, the student-run magazine on food at Penn. He is listed as a copy associate for Penn Review, Penn's literary magazine. Obviously, a young man that enjoyed writing and seemed to be doing pretty good at school and being sociable and reaching out into these different areas and exploring things. Bernstein's father said Blaze was on the pre-med track. He was planning on declaring psychology as his major when he returned to school. Certainly a heartbreaking case. There is a Facebook page to help find Blaze as well. I'll have a link to that in the description box for you to check out as well. But where is Blaze? That is really the question. And I'm asking you, if you have friends in the Orange County area, please share this video with them. Let's raise exposure to this. It is getting some pretty decent coverage. Obviously, you saw the names of some of the publications we were talking about, but the story is being told in a few different ways, which I'm kind of struggling with. And in-depth coverage isn't exactly going on here. This seems to be kind of repeat the press release type coverage. So I'm hoping this video will be useful in terms of trying to pull some of these pieces together, give a little bit more of an overview, and hopefully try to help find Blaze and bring him back to his family. I really think that we have to consider there's a good possibility that he is out there somewhere, that he left for some reason that we don't understand. I think we also have to consider that something might have happened to him, that he might have been dealing with some type of element, possibly related to something illegal or something along those lines, which would be terrible. There's also the other possibility that for some reason he thought he wanted to go through a walk in the park. and he didn't have his glasses, might have hurt himself, something along those lines. That's kind of what law enforcement was originally hoping for, that they were going to find him somewhere, but that didn't quite pan out. So I don't know how likely that scenario is. I think we're looking at one of the other two, and from this chair, I'm really hoping that he did leave on his own accord and that he comes to terms with whatever he was dealing with. If he wants to quit school, whatever it is, please come to terms with that, Blaze, and just come and let your family know that you're okay, if nothing else, even if you need to go off to find yourself or discover the type of life that you'd rather have. Outside of all that, if you've heard anything about this, like I said, please use the contact information in the description box below. Put that information in the hands of people that can act on it, and hopefully they'll take it from there and try to solve this case. Thank you, everyone, for joining me here on BrainScratch Searchlight. I appreciate each and every one of you that checks this out and cares about these cases like I do. Take care, and I'll see you back here tomorrow on the Lord and Arts channel.